right, thank you everyone for coming tonight. We have Donna Seebo as our presenter, and I will be introducing her now. So Donna is an international mental practitioner, psychic, award-winning author, counselor, teacher, minister, speaker, radio and TV personality, and host and producer of the weekday Donna Seebo Show and weekly Warriors for Peace International programming. She is dedicated to empowering others through education, media, and other modalities related to the understanding of the powers of the mind. She has been the guest on various national and international programs, sharing her skills and knowledge with people from various countries. So please welcome Donna tonight.
Hello, everyone. It is just wonderful to be here this evening, even though the winds are blowing and the rain's coming down and my front and backyard look like something from a horror movie because of all the debris. But we're nice and warm and cozy inside, and that's a good thing. I want to also take the opportunity before I begin saying anything or talking this evening. I'd like to thank Lorelei and Tiffany and Anessa and all of the people that put together the BEPC event, because as she mentioned earlier, it was just absolutely incredibly wonderful. And then there is so much community that occurred with that event. It was just a joy to be able to be a part of that and to be able to see the enthusiasm with all the vendors, and then also the enthusiasm of the people that were coming into the program. They really liked it. Now, my talk this evening is, what is the gift? Now, I was asked at the earlier part of this year if I would do a program then in November, which is what I'm doing this evening. And they asked me for a title, and I came up with, what is the gift? And I really didn't give it much of a thought. And they said, gee, that's great. This is the holiday season. It's a perfect title to be able to share with the people that are going to be a part of the meeting. And you know what? I really didn't have the opportunity to really think about what I was going to say. What was I going to talk about? And when I was going through the event last weekend, and I was watching all of the people that were participating, I had conversations with so many individuals. There were phone calls that I had at the office. There were so many different interactions with people that one of the things that stuck so vividly in my mind is how people were very hungry to have some positive information, to have a feeling of being able to communicate, to be alert, to be aware that they weren't stuck in a quagmire of, what I want to say, confusion, despair. They were just absolutely walking out from the event feeling so good, and some of them even came back on Sunday. Now that says something. That says it doesn't take much to make a shift. It doesn't take much to take yourself into a whole different mindset. If you're feeling like so many people have felt for almost 2 years now, that, gee, they don't have many choices, that there's just so much in life that's so unpleasant, and wow, you hear about this on the news and that on the news, and before you know it, you wonder if you should jump off the nearest cliff and ask for a parachute afterwards, because it's just very discouraging. And you get all this feedback from people. So as a community, I thought, those of you that are going to be interested in what I have to say this evening are people that really want to take charge of who you are, of your life, and your attitudes. And this is so important. It's so very important. You know, I consider myself a very, very fortunate woman because of the work I do. When I think of the programming that I have done for 20 years, this is my 20th anniversary with my daily show, and my 7th anniversary with Warriors for Peace. And I sat down and I figured out some numbers. They're not exactly correct. But in the last 20 years, I have interacted with well over 10,000 people. Now, that's just with my radio show. Has nothing to do with personal appearances. It's just the show. And when I think back, when I started the program, I had no idea that I was still going to be doing my show, which when it started in 2001, wasn't international. The internet was sort of coming around, but slow techies like me took a while to catch up. But it was something that the internet was beginning to come into play. And as my programming began, I found I was being contacted by people from different parts of the world. Technology evolved so quickly that I was able, because of technology like we have this evening, to be able to access just about anybody on the planet. It was fascinating to me to be able to talk to somebody in Ethiopia who had actually outlawed Skype. The author that I featured had done a phenomenal publication on women pilots. And so we were going to be talking about that for an hour. She had to go to the American embassy because the government of Ethiopia had outlawed Skype. So the embassy had it. The show went on. Just this past week, I was interviewing people for upcoming shows in England, in Spain, Wales, Germany. And it shows me that we have such an international community. It is marvelous. It is marvelous what we're able to do. What is the gift? I'm going to share a little bit of something about my personal life and why I chose that title. Because it's rare a day goes by where I don't ask myself that question. What is the gift? Maybe it's something that you would like to do yourself. If you're into journaling, I'm big on journaling. I really, really believe in journaling. It's something I've done for most of my life. I find it a wonderful tool. But sometimes we have to take and be mindful about what might be going on in a day. A lot of things can happen. A lot of stuff is unexpected. You don't know what's going to be tossed your way by the universe, by life itself. You just don't know. So let me tell you what really awakened me to the area of paranormal, the development of psychic abilities. I wish I could say it was something absolutely super spectacular, Hollywood style, but it wasn't. No, in fact, it was just the opposite. It was nightmares. It was total fear. I was in a very bad marriage at the time, in my early 20s. And I didn't know the options I had to be able to get out of the mess I was in. So what happens with the mind? Your subconscious and your God self will come in and weave together something that's going to get your attention. And that's what happened with me. I got so frightened that I ended up talking with a very dear friend that I am still friends with today. And I said, you know, I'm having these experiences, and I chatted with her. She said, I haven't got a clue. I have no idea how you can even work with this. The long story shortened to just a few seconds here. Going through a process, I was introduced to a woman by the name of Gloria. And it was a stormy night in Inglewood, California, when I called her, and I was and still am, a very, very private person. But at that time, I was seriously private. And what occurred is that as soon as she answered the phone, I told her, I said, you know, I do not know what's going on, but I'm having these nightmares and I'm afraid for my life. I really feel like I'm in danger. Can you help me? Can you help me? 4 words. 4 words that changed my life. Little did I realize how much it was going to change my life. But asking for help is huge. It's absolutely huge. Gloria said, "Of course I can help you. Of course." That was my first conversation with a woman who became my mentor. I knew her for 2 years before she passed away. She was only 38 years of age, but she had finished her job and she had passed her mantle on to me. And I remember her telling me, "Donna, there's nothing more I can teach you. I finished." Well, I don't know of any student that likes hearing that from a teacher that they love a great deal. You never like that. You don't want to be left behind. You always want to be with that person. When I reflect on that situation and that condition, it introduced me when I was going through the throes of anger and frustration and being frightened and not knowing which direction to turn in. The gift that was given to me was a gift of friendship, number 1. Number 2, because my mentor was an astrologer, she recognized the skills that I had, and she said, "This is what you're going to do. Everything that you are capable of doing, I would love to do." But she said, "That's not my job. This is going to be your job." Of course, I thought she was nuttier than the fruitcake because I didn't have a clue about what she was talking about. Well, these many years later, I realized that she gave me not just one gift, but many gifts. And primarily the gift that I received out of that time of discord was a whole new path in my life. For over 10 years, I did public work with a little spiritualist church in Gardena, California. And it wasn't until I was in my early 30s that I started to work professionally. Every step we take brings us something that we may not be able to see right at the time when we're going through it. I certainly didn't think the nightmares were a gift for me. I certainly didn't think the lousy marriage was. But part of the process of my growing into the person that I am today came about because of the fact that I did accept a gift of friendship. There was also a gift of trust. There was a gift of understanding. I had the capability of making changes. You know, when you're in your 20s, you're pretty much brain dead. I can't speak for anybody else, but it took me a long time to accept that. Because when I was growing up, my goodness, women, you weren't supposed to think. You were supposed to look pretty, you were supposed to look good, and you were supposed to keep your mouth shut. Does that sound familiar to any of you? Well, that's definitely what I was taught. Took a long time to unlearn those attitudes and feelings that really were not appropriate, but they were there. So it took a long time for me to really understand that you can have circumstances that are so downright ugly, unpleasant. You think the world is at an end. You just think that something will never, ever be, changed. You get stuck somewhere. But there's always a gift. And sometimes, I don't know about you, I'm a little bit stubborn. So sometimes the universe hits me in the mental head with a 10 by 20 board if I'm really not paying attention. And I have to acknowledge that I need to pay attention. What's the gift? There is a wonderful woman by the name of Dorothea Kramer. Now, she passed away in her late 80s, about 4 or 5 years ago. I had the privilege of having Dorothea Kramer as a guest on my show more than once. And also, she appeared with me when I did the women's showcase at the Women's Show in Seattle when it was there. And she was a guest. This woman was incredible. Now, she was born in Germany during the early 1940s. And this was at the end of the war, around 45. Germany was in shambles. It was awful. She was a little girl. She was only about 5 years old. And Dorothea, she ended up doing something that's a little bit unusual. It's a little bit unusual for a 5-year-old. She and her sister, there was no family around. Her sister was a few years older than her, but there was no supervision. There were no adults for her and her sister. Well, this little 5-year-old decides to go out into the debris-strewn area that she and her sister were living in. Living conditions were very, very hard. A lot of people were starving. She goes out, and she had this talent. She had this talent of being able to see colors around people. Now, at 5 years old, she didn't have anybody to tell her about what these colors meant, but she would notice, and she had noticed from as far as she could remember, how certain colors looked nice, other colors didn't look so good. So when it came to being around people, if people didn't have nice colors around them, she just wasn't going to give them any time of day because it was survival time. Very, very difficult period. She goes out, she's walking down the street. She sees a woman that's standing by herself with a cardboard suitcase down on the ground next to her leg. This little girl, Dorothea, looks at the woman and she sees all kinds of pretty colors, all kinds of pretty colors. She says, okay. So she goes up to the woman and takes her hand. She asks her a very important question. That question was, can you fix pancakes? Now, how do you think you would have responded? This woman was totally surprised. Number one, that the 5-year-old had taken her hand. And two, that asked her this kind of a question. And it made her smile. And she said, yes, I can fix pancakes. Dorothea said, good, you're coming home with me and you're going to take care of me and my sister. And that's exactly what the woman ended up doing. She had no place else to go. And so she took care of Dorothea and her sister until circumstances changed. Dorothea, after going through such a very, very difficult childhood, where she could have been encumbered with all kinds of dark memories and harsh realities, what she did instead is that she took that talent of hers, and she took that talent and she put it to use in the arena of medicine. Now, this is a woman that, as the years went by, became aware of her own expanded intuitive gifts. She entered the world of nursing, and what she saw many times when it came to dealing with sick patients, she wanted to be able to help them. And she knew eventually that what she was seeing in colors often reflected the need of a person's well-being to be corrected if there was something wrong. And so this evolved her into developing one of the few medically accredited courses that anyone in the medical field dealing with energy healing can get credits for professionally. This woman had put together a program that became certified. And when I think of how many people there are that are dedicated to the world of healing and making the environment of wellness something that we work with keeping, we don't wait until we get sick, but let's work with whatever the body's telling us. So Dorothea took her circumstances and she manipulated them to become a positive. I don't know of anybody that doesn't have tough times. I've yet to meet a human being that has not had a dark night of the soul, one way or the other. It just seems to come with the effects of being a human being. And we're here to grow. We're here to learn. So I looked at that, and I looked at my own experience of being in a bad marriage. But through that bad marriage, not only was I introduced into the psychic area, but I also was exposed to different cultures, because the person that I had such a miserable marriage with was a Syrian Armenian that had come to this country to escape communism in Syria. And because of him, and so many of the people that he had known in Syria had escaped and gotten into the United States, I was able to meet with these different people. I learned about the Armenian culture. I learned about what people were going through, what their real life stories were. I learned so much within a 2-year period. Yes, that's all the longer it lasted. 2 years transformed my life. You never know how a gift is going to be packaged for you. And sometimes it may smell like Limburger cheese. It's awful. And you'll wonder, Donna, what's wrong with you? How can you say that out of this can come something positive? If nothing else, you learn resilience. You learn how to think outside the box. You're forced into something that maybe you would have run away from. And you learn that you have courage, that you have capabilities, that you have talents. You're forced to move forward. And that is often what happens with circumstances like the COVID. It has saddened me many times, the fear that I have seen with perfect strangers. I was in a Walgreens, and this was just a few weeks ago, because for the BEPC event, we had to get COVID testing. So I went in to find out about the COVID tests, etc. And there was this poor soul, and I call her a poor soul for a reason. She was so frightened because of the mandate and what she was going to have to do. She could hardly function. This person had literally locked herself down, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. She was in a lockdown that was just paralyzing her. And there wasn't much of a chance for me to chat with her. But in talking with me, she at least relaxed a little bit. She wasn't quite so frightened. You see, fear has a two-edged sword. You can either use it to leverage yourself forward, or you can use it to cut your own throat. And I mean that, because I've had to learn that. So it's, where are you going to put your mind? Where are you going to put your attitudes? And are you willing to look for the gift? That's very important. I wanted to share some things with you because on my upcoming shows, I get so much fabulous material. And I'm going to show you some books. This one is about a woman, an African-American woman called Susan Angeline Collins. Now, this was written by Janice Bennington Van Buren. This book is absolutely phenomenal. Susan, an African-American woman, late 1800s, ended up spending 33 years in Africa. Now, you think about it, much different Africa than today. This is a woman that in the 1800s broke all precedents. The Wild Wild West was still in place when she decided she was going to become a missionary to Africa. And the girls' lives that she saved when she was there, it's incredible. Now, what's even more incredible is the woman that wrote this book learned about Susan when she was a little girl. And it was because of a star that was brightly shining inside the ceiling of the church that she attended. And she asked her mother one day, 8 years old, she asked her mother, she said, Mom, why is that star up there? Why is the light on all the time? Her mother said, well, that's because of Susan Angeline Collins and the incredible work that she did that affected the lives of hundreds of young girls in Africa that would have been sold. They were brutalized horribly. And she was in different areas of Africa. She ended up in Angola. Well, Susan, at the age of 8, now Susan's a mature woman today. We're talking about 2021. She started on a journey after she retired to do the research on this woman. And the research took her all over the country. She even went to Africa. And this book is loaded with gifts. Now, I say that deliberately because too often we like to think that what we're going through is so bad. And it isn't. It really isn't that bad. When you study history, you find out what other people have survived, what they've gone through, what obstacles they had to overcome to achieve what they did. And I'm big on that with my programming. I've also got coming up, Dear Bob. This is a brand new publication. It's about Bob Hope. I learned more about this man than I possibly could have ever known. I always enjoyed his sense of humor. As a little girl, I can remember watching different things that he would do and his quick wit. But I had no idea that after World War II started and we became involved, that he started doing his shows with veterans and did 158 performances in 8 days. And he was on tour every year with other major stars. He left such a big legacy for the Library of Congress. They've got a warehouse for all of his stuff. What's in a lot of that stuff? Letters from soldiers who said, thank you for making me laugh. And most of those soldiers were just kids. This is part of American history. And when I think about other people around the world, Sandy Edwards is coming up on my show this month as the author of Dear Bob. She's going to be on in December. But this lady is coming up this month, Sandy Edwards. Her book is Spiritual Healing in Hospitals and Clinics. She did scientific research regarding energy healing. And she actually was able to present a proposal to Parliament so that people would be able to have a healer work with them. Her story is amazing. And this didn't happen overnight. They offer in England, there is a healing institute of type. You go for a 2-year course. Sandy's story is amazing. Because when she went in to become the healer, she was advised by a medium to become a healer. She signed up. She said, I didn't have any of the effects. Like people will talk, their hands will get very hot, or they see things, they feel energy. She said, I didn't have any of that. But something was happening. She said, something was happening that enabled me to see that I could be a healer. And if I can be a healer, anybody can be a healer if they're wanting to make the commitment and the dedication. This is a powerful read. Why? Because she was able to see the gift in the feedback of what was being told to her about things that were happening that she couldn't see. There weren't any colors, like with Dorothea. She couldn't feel anything in her hands or in her body. And she's been in the healing work for years. She said gradually, what occurred with her when she was doing energy healing. And she said her hands would just go over people. There was very little touching ever done. And they would do the whole body scan. She said she got so she would hear these little clicks. When she heard the clicks, she paid attention to what part of the body the hand was moving over. Now, this is for her. It may not be that way for anybody else. She said, it is working. So you have that. And I thought I would share that with you because I know so many of you are interested in that. So you see, no matter where we are on this planet, there are people of like mind. And what's so wonderful is that we're able to come together in a cohesive manner and be able to present to others the fact that we can join in alliance. We don't have to battle against each other. We don't have to go to war over anything. We don't have to be petty. We don't have to be jealous. We don't have to go through any of that nonsense if we just who we are. That's all. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, when I was thinking about what is the gift, I think of another man, and you may be aware of him. His name is Robert Monroe. Now, this book came out about Robert a long time ago. I didn't have the privilege of interviewing him, but I did have the privilege of interviewing the author. This man, who was an incredibly successful businessman, ended up developing the Monroe Institute so that people could learn and understand about out-of-body experiences. His story is incredible because he started utilizing tones, sounds, sound therapy. If any of you have ever experienced the singing bowls, and I did have that wonderful experience many years ago, it fills your whole body and it can be very healing for you. His research and the Monroe Institute is still very alive and well. They're back in Charlottesville, Virginia. If ever you want to research them, feel free to do it because it's a wonderful group of people. But this man was so good in business. He was just absolutely phenomenally good in business, but he had certain experiences. So he became curious. He wanted to find out more about what could be researched. He documented it, not unlike Sandy with her healing. So he documented so many experiences and so many people that came in contact with him. He even had a special testing room. They don't use it anymore, but it's there. I know, I've seen it. And what happened is that they would go in and they would have these experiences of being out of body due to tones and sounds. Incredible stuff. You see, we're always growing, and we're never going to get to whatever we think we should get to. We're always going to find there's another horizon. We're always going to find that there are these options and opportunities for us to be able to move forward. Now, with COVID, how many people, like the woman I mentioned that was in Walgreens, so paralyzed with fear, to be able to comfort her, to be able to give her that sense of joy that we were able to give to people at the expo, that's wonderful. And we're all in a process of constantly advancing ourselves, of learning, of growing. You never know it all. You can't possibly. And it's so exciting, I think. It's absolutely marvelous. And we can all share what we know, and we can disagree to disagree if we want, or to not disagree. It's all right. But it's in sharing, it's in communication that we are able to enrich each other's lives. We as human beings need to have that communication. It's just like this group. This group right here, right now, we may not have 150 people here, But the energy with this group right here, right now, is as bright as the greatest star in the universe. Because we're of a communion of thinking, of attitudes, and wanting to be able to make this world a better place. And how do we do that? We do that by shining our light. We do that by being aware that whatever we have, we don't have to be fearful of someone taking it away from us, because we are it. We are an expression of something that is so magnificently wonderful that if we can appreciate that part of ourselves, oh my goodness, there's no end in sight. And as far as being of a certain age, being an advantage or a disadvantage, no, doesn't make any difference. You know, what's so wonderful about the world today, for all of this stuff that we go through, is that you always have the choice. You always have the choice of what you're going to do with your mind, your attitudes, whose company you're going to keep. What environments do you want to be in? What are you curious about? Is there something that maybe you feel that's driving you, compelling you to do something that maybe you never ever thought you would do? You just never know. You just never know. Let me give you another example. This is a personal one. It has to do with how I met my husband. Now, this was 45 years ago, and I had been single for a long time. And I had just said, that's it. I'm not concerned. I really can't be bothered with any of this stuff. Forget it. My work as a psychic had begun. And I said, that's what I'm going to give my time and attention to. Forget this relationship stuff. It is so unbelievably disgusting. I just don't want to work with it anymore. Well, as it turned out, one day I was having a meditation and I was shown that I was going to be getting married. Now, remember I said I got a wee bit of stubbornness in me? Guess what I did? I said, not. Somebody's got the signal wrong. I don't know. No. I am not going to get married. Nope. Been there, done that. Didn't work. Have no intentions. Well, as it turned out, I was invited to speak at a function where there was like 100 people that had attended. And this was out in Toluca Lake, California. So I go out there and I'm out there and I meet a couple. And it was Melvin and Madeline Ewell, who ended up becoming very, very dear friends of mine. Well, something had happened at the event that was a bit upsetting to me. But in meeting Melvin and Madeline, they didn't know me from Adam, but they enjoyed what I did. And they said, you know what? We would love to have you come to our home. We put on parties and we do this. And we, it's like every few months we have a party. Would you like to come and entertain my guests? I said, sure. That's great. And I was going to be paid for the evening. They said, well, look forward, gave me their address, gave me their phone number, and I said, fine. So I ended up being scheduled to be a part of their parties. Now, this couple was in their late 60s at the time I met them. And when I met them, it was really a surprise to find out that this delightful elderly couple had a Spanish-style mansion that in the backyard, there was a ballroom floor for people to dance on. Now, this is in California, so the weather was nice. It wasn't the Pacific Northwest, believe me. Anyway, I end up going there, and they had a total spread out for people. They had food. They had all kinds of different guests, including myself. And as it turned out, my to-be husband was there. And he ends up afterwards, chatting with me. And I just went, oh, good grief. I'm not interested in anything. And he ended up sitting down next to me. and was telling me about his little Scottish terrier and how that little Scottish terrier would just jump up and down and greet him with joy. And I was so disgusted with his presence. I really didn't want to be bothered with him at all. And I just looked at him and just said, well, you could never get a wife to do that. He didn't say much after that remark. I was a little sarcastic. Anyway, time went on. I was invited back to a very special fiesta that they were going to have at their home. And as it turned out, before I went to that event, I was told that he was going to be there and that I also was going to be encountering a drunk. And I have very little tolerance for drunks. I said, oh, good grief, what's going to go on with this event? So I ended up going. And of course, Madeline wanted the ladies to dress in pretty dresses and gowns because it was going to be an evening, not just of delicious food, but also dancing, because they had a little mini orchestra that was going to be playing all kinds of music until the wee hours of the morning. Well, as it turned out, I was sitting at a table, and sure enough, over comes a drunk. And this guy had his girlfriend on his arm, and it was just totally disgusting, his behavior. I felt so sorry for her. It had to have been embarrassing. He was making passes at me. I happened to turn around in my chair and look at the French doors that led out to the outside event. My husband walks, my to-be husband, walks through the door. And I thought, I need to be rescued. I'm either going to be rescued or I'm going to leave the gathering. And so I ended up waving at him. Well, he was all excited because his date had ditched him that night. He didn't have a date. His date disappeared with her previous boyfriend. Anyway, that was the beginning of an association that ended up our being married for a number of years. And I look at that, and I look at being in an environment where there was unethical behavior going on, where I had the gift that was given to me of this wonderful senior couple. And then I'm invited to entertain people, and then he's there. And what we learned later is that they made a point of inviting both of us. It's almost like they were working like a marriage broker. But he would be at some events that they put on because they had regular things going on like almost every week. And then I would be at some. And though there was that time difference between the two, and our paths crossed again. And in the time that I first met him to the time that we began dating, his life went through a total transformation, that if he hadn't had that transformation, I would have had nothing to do with him. So you see, sometimes Spirit has a way of bringing things into play. And the gift that is given to you is not always what you expect. It really isn't always what you expect. I know we're going to take a break here, and if you have any questions about the talk, I want to say this one thing. You can ask yourself every day, what is the gift? Regardless of what your circumstances are. It's not just an attitude of gratitude, it's also, what is that gift that I'm being given today that I need to pay attention to? And you may find that it's going to be something that's amazingly simple, and yet it can change your life. And you know why that's the case? Because you truly are the gift. You really are the gift. You're the gift in your life. You have been given life, and you're the person that is going to be able to make a difference, just like Sandy Edwards working with getting healing into hospitals, Robert Monroe, scientific study with out-of-body experiences, Susan Collins, a woman who's left a legacy that still inspires young women as well as men, with her courage. You are significant. You may not ever be in the Wall Street Journal or People magazine or some other great publication, but you make a difference by being who you are. You are the gift. You are the gift. Now, I know we're going to give some time here if you wanted to bring up any questions. I am not going to do readings right now, so I can start the readings if nobody has any questions. But let me tell you what I'm doing this evening with the blindfold demonstration. You've each been assigned a number. When I begin the blindfold demonstrations, a number is going to be given to me that has been randomly picked. I will then give information relative to that number. If you have a pad of paper and a pen, I strongly encourage you to make notes, because I'm not going to remember what I tell you. Because when I give information, I get the information, then I let it go and I move on to the next person. So I want you to know that. And if you've got a photographic memory and you can remember everything, that's wonderful. But I am going to be doing one person after the other. One person after the other. You will be muted. I don't want to hear any response of any kind, so they can mute you. That's great until I'm finished. So what I will be doing, I'll give that information, and then we'll go to the next number. And they're going to keep track of the numbers for me because I'm just not going to be able to do that. So once we finish, and we'll start with, I'm going to say 8 people. I have no idea how many people are on, but I would say 8 people I will be able to do, and then we'll see whatever time is left. I'm going to put on the blindfold, even though I know we're doing Zoom, but I'm going to put on the blindfold. I do not want any distraction. After I finish 8 people, then we're going to be able to open up each line with you. Whoever was the first one, then you can ask me about what I gave, that type of thing. So that's what we're going to do. And if I had been in person with you, I would have had someone else, working with me as we are doing with Zoom. But this shows that you don't have to have any link, any physical contact. The mind is an extraordinary instrument, and you can get downloads of information in surprising ways. So I am going to turn this over to Tiffany and see if anybody had a comment or a question relative to my talk before I start the readings.
Thank you so much, Donna. We really appreciate your stories and sharing your insights with us. If anyone has a question right now, you can go ahead and raise your virtual hand or type it into the chat.
I just want to mention too, Donna, you're getting great feedback in the chat. Someone sharing what a wonderful storyteller and one of the best speakers I've ever heard. So thanks so much, Donna.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love what I do. I love what I do. And if I'm able in any way to assist anyone that is really wanting to understand that this time that we're in, this is your time to grow. Adversity happens because we need to get out of our box. And I'm just as guilty of that as anybody else. We get so nice and cozy and comfortable, and we just say, well, that's just the way it is, when really, and I can speak to it, the universe has kicked me so many times in the tush that the customer service department knows who I am when I call in, and they hang up on me.
I think someone was wondering the first book you shared.
Yes.
About Susan. Is it just
Yes.
Susan Angeline Collins?
Yes, and the woman, Janice Van Buren, has done an incredible job, because what she has done with this book is that not only did she go into Susan's history, but it is also American history, and it is involving the African American people. It is involving, people of different environments, different races. Now, this is the book. And Janice Bennington Van Buren, if you want to be in touch with her, she's the author I recommend it highly. You can Google her name. Her website is her name, I believe, Janice Bennington Van Buren. But she's an amazing woman to do all of this research. It took her years to go to Africa to find out what Susan had done. I mean, this is what I have the privilege of doing every day. And nobody has to twist my arm. I think if somebody had told me I'd still be doing this 21 years later, I would have said, no, you're nuts. 6 shows a week? Are you kidding me? I don't even make enough money to cover all the costs. But that's okay, because it's enriched my life. And the stories that I hear, the people that I encounter, you go, so much for that pity pot attitude. I'm out of here. No, you read stories about Susan Collins and others. And that's what my programming is about. I've interviewed veterans, all kinds of people. They inspire me. And you need to be inspired. We all need to be inspired. Sandy, I mean, with what she's accomplished in England, amazing. People in Spain. This COVID situation has prompted us to move forward. It has moved us ahead, I think, this is my opinion, 10 years. It's moved us ahead 10 years because we needed a good swift kick, and we needed it deliberately placed so that we can understand we are not meant to be stuck. We aren't meant to be stuck. Is this new in human experience? Not at all. Okay, Tiffany, are we ready to go?
Okay.
There's one disadvantage about having the mask, and that is, 1, I can't see anything, but 2, always messes up my hair. Okay, what's the first number, Tiffany?
The first number is 46.
All right, number 46, I want you to be prepared that you are going to be doing some traveling. When I'm watching you in my mind, I am looking at you, feeling like you need to really pick up the pace. It's as if I'm standing in place and I'm frustrated because my hands are in fists and I'm rotating them and I can't move. So what this is telling me is that there is a level of frustration that you are feeling because you're not able to get a momentum going for yourself at this time in the way that you want. And I want to say hang loose. You are taking things a little bit too seriously. I want you to be able to back up, release the fists, the stress, and know that you can move forward. You're going to be able to move forward, but it's probably going to be more like February the 2nd to February the 16th. When I'm watching you in my mind also, there is a sense of grief that I have in my chest. And it's as if there is something from the past that you have not been able to release. And I want you to be able to face whatever that is, put it behind you so that you're going to be able to move forward in 2022 in the way that you want. Also, there's something with your diet that needs to change. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm feeling a sense of hunger. And yet at the same time, I think that you're trying to do something very restrictive with food, and it's not smart. You need to really pay attention to what your body tells you. All right, so let's go to the second person.
Okay, second person, 43.
All right, with 43, when I watch
33.
you,
33.
excuse me, 33. Okay, when I look at 33, I am seeing just a sense of joy here. You have gone through some very interesting cycles, and somehow or another, you have been able, in going through whatever the challenges are, that's the word that I will use, whatever the challenge is, you've gone through it, and I see you being very upset over certain circumstances, and then you all of a sudden stop and you turn around and you look at the challenge and you go, enough of that stuff, and you move forward. I really think that you have gone through a metamorphosis in the last year and a half, that you are just now realizing that you have experienced, and you're opening yourself up to brand new opportunities. I really like what I see here. I like the feeling here. I think that you are knowing truly what real liberation is. And yes, you are going to be going back to a schooling, training environment of some kind. It's not something that's going to take 4 years. It is something that is going to be for maybe, it might be 3-6 months. It's not very long. And you're going to do just beautifully, absolutely beautifully. But I am looking at a digestive discomfort, and I'm patting my stomach, and I feel as if smaller portions are very important for you. But also what I am looking at that concerns me is that there is a challenge in your back as well. I'm getting it, I would say, about an inch above the waistline. And I've got my arm around my waist, and it's like a wide belt. And I'm looking at that, and I want to say you need to do very gentle stretching exercises so that you keep that area of the body in balance. And if you do that, you're not going to have the stress in your neck, because this area in the back is also a reflection of the liver, kidney, and it goes up into the neck area. So you need to be sure that you should do some very, very gentle exercises. All right, what is the number 3 person?
Number 3 is 42.
42. When I look at 42, I'm seeing you looking at a map of the United States. And you are trying to evaluate, as you are looking at this map, standing over it, I'm seeing you thinking very, very thoughtfully, and you're asking, where do I want to go? You love to travel, absolutely love to travel, but you just don't want to go anywhere or everywhere. There is a specific patterning that you want to follow. And I think that there's a very strong relationship between you and the East Coast. Now, this could be past life. It could also be a part of your genetic factor in your ancestry. So I'm looking at a very strong relationship to the East Coast, and I'm going up the East Coast. It's as if I'm going up into Maine, and I'm coming down, I'm coming all the way down, and I'm stopping off in different places. I then see Washington, D.C., but there is this journey that I see you taking. And then I'm also seeing you wanting to go to Montana, Wyoming, different places in the country, but there's a reason for it. There's something that is calling to you from these different points in the US. And also I'm seeing you wanting to visit Canada. I'm looking at this love of travel, but I want you to know, no matter where you go, you're going to make friends wherever you go. And your financial situation that sometimes bothers you, you wonder, gee, am I smart enough to be able to have the well-being I need when I'm in my elder years? I want to say, don't worry about that. You're going to be fine. You're going to be taken care of. You are a good business person. You've got a good head on your shoulders. All you need to do is have a little bit more confidence in yourself, and you're going to do just beautifully. Number 4 person.
Number 4 is 31.
31, I feel as if I need to stand down. I feel as if I really want to take the time to think things through. I just don't feel settled. I am feeling as if something is evolving in me. I can't put it in a box. I don't know how to describe it. And yet, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not concerned. I'll tell you what I think is happening here. I think psychically, you're just opening up in a way and manner that you would never have dreamed. And you are becoming more in rhythm with your own life, with what needs to be done. And I don't see little things bothering you. Now, that sounds a little corny, but where you might have gotten highly stressed out, let's say 5 or 6 years ago about things, not anymore. You're not concerned about that. That isn't what the issue is. You're saying, what is it that's giving me this sense of drive of discomfort. You're not sick. There's nothing absolutely horrifically negative around you. None of that. None of that. But it is this part of you that's blossoming. And that is what you need to be aware of. And so just go along with the flow. Don't sweat the small stuff. You don't need to. You are in the right place at the right time. You are going to need to see a dentist. I am looking at that, but it's not a big deal. Take care of what you know you need to take care of. The harmony is there for you. And I think because the harmony is there, because you've not had that kind of harmony to that degree, then it's uncomfortable. Don't worry about it. You're doing just fine. You're doing just fine.